friends, and welcome to my crafty space. If this is your first time with me, my name is Crystal Idunyate, and this is a place where I share my memory keeping processes and projects with all of you. Today I am diving into my Project Life 2020 album. So I'm starting today with week 1. If you follow me on Instagram, or if you're in the Allie Edwards Craft the Story group, you may have seen my cover page already, which looks like this. So today we're on the back side of this page. I'm working on week 1. This year I am sticking to the weekly format, and I'm also sticking to my 12 by 12 album size, doing a 2-page spread per week. I have little kids at home and just a lot happening, so I wanted to keep my options wide open for telling all the stories that I wanted to tell. So today I am going to be using the Allie Edwards Stories by the Month kit that was themed for January. It was released in the middle of December, so it's been out for a while, but today I'm using some of that product in order to make my first spread. If you do not have this kit, I know that they are available, at least the cards and the stamps, are available for purchase online as a digital project. So a digital product. So you can still get that part online. So today my plan is to put this spread together. I'm going to put you on fast forward and do a voiceover. This is the first video that I will be doing a voiceover for, but my son woke up from his nap, so I don't want you guys to have to listen to him, even though he's, just playing and having fun, but, I'm just going to put you on fast forward and see if I can make this video go fairly quick. Before I get to the actual process on my desk of putting these items together, I first want to show you something on my computer. So before I get to the sped up version of this, we will go over to my computer screen, and I'm going to show you how I created some of my own journaling cards that are prepped for stamping. So when I was looking through my photos for this week, which are all in here, I had a lot of blues and grays and whites, a lot of neutral colors, but then a lot of pink in here too. And if you have the story kit, or the Stories by the Month kit in January, you'll notice that a lot of the colors are like reds and yellows, and like this red isn't super great with the pink. And some of the cards were this color. So what I decided was to pull out as many of the cards that had more neutral colors as possible, and then to use my stamp set to create my own journaling cards. Since I like to type my journaling, I just prefer it to my own handwriting. What I decided to do was to pre-create my journaling card with my journaling already on there, so all I have to do is stamp the titles at the top. So we're going to switch over to my computer screen so I can show you guys how I made these cards, and then we'll come back over here to the table and I'll show you a sped up version of how I put this all together. One last thing to mention before we go to the computer is that when I was figuring out my own journaling cards, the first thing I had to do before I got onto Photoshop was to measure the stamps that I wanted to use. So I know that in today's journaling cards, I'm going to be using this January Memories stamp and this Motivation, Finding It and Making It Happen stamp. So the first thing that I did, the width didn't really matter to me because it's going to fit on both of them. So really the height of the stamp is what mattered. So like this one right here is about 1.25 inches tall, and then this one right here is roughly 1/2 inch tall. So using those measurements helped me determine where to put my journaling on my card. Since this one is 1.25 inches, I believe I made my journaling about 1.5 inches down. maybe a little bit more, but about 1.5 inches. So I have a little wiggle room for that to fit on there. This one, I knew I wanted to do like 2 or 3 rows of this to make it kind of collaged. It's 1/2 inch, and this opening right here is about 1.5 inches roughly. So if I want to do 2 rows, I can. If I want to do 3 rows, I can. I might do 3, but we'll see when we get there. We'll see when we get there what I feel like doing. But I just wanted you to know that the first thing I did was to measure the height of the stamp. So let's go over to my computer screen. I'll show you guys how I made these, and then we'll come back here and we'll put this thing together. So here I am on Photoshop Creative Cloud, and the first thing I'm going to do is create a journaling card that is sized to the size that I want. So it's 3 inches by 4 inches on a white background. Then I am going up to the ruler and dragging down a guideline to be at that height where the journaling should start in order to let my stamp be at the top. I'm going to put a text box underneath that using the guideline as a measurement, and then your journaling would go in that square. Once you have your journaling typed out, I highly recommend saving it as a Photoshop document so that if you have a typo, you can go back in and edit it. Then once I have it saved, I merged the layers down to create one layer. Once I had the one layer created, I then created one more new document sized at 8.5 by 11 inches. And then I just went back, copied the journaling card, pasted it, and put it in place so I could get it printed out. Okay, so now we're back at my desk, and what I'm doing right now is setting aside my journaling cards and grabbing over my pictures so that I can get them trimmed and ready to be put into pockets. For my 3x4 pictures, I like to put 2 of them on a 4x6 canvas so that I can print them out on paper that is sized at the 4x6, and then I just need to trim it in half in order to get those pictures ready to go. However, in a lot of the scrapbooking pocket pages, the pockets are slightly smaller than 3x4 inches, so I do have to trim a tiny bit off of the edges in order for them to fit in those pockets later. You'll see that I actually have to trim even more later because they're still slightly too big, but you'll see that later. It doesn't bother me. And I feel like it's really hard to tell that the border is like slightly smaller than the top ones, so I don't really mind. So then I'm going to pull over my page protectors and kind of set all of the pictures and all of the journaling cards out so I can see where everything is, how it's going to look, make sure that, I'm not missing anything before I move on to the next step in this process. Which I believe is going to be stamping on those journaling cards. So there we go. So there is like the spread in general. And then I am going to set half of it aside. Oh, here we are. I'm grabbing out the stamps I'm going to be using. So there we go. I'm going to set aside half of it and then pull over the cards to get those done. Now, when I go to stamp my titles onto the cards, I know that I want to use yellow on the January memories. I want to bring over some of the yellows from like the unicorn picture and the January high fives, but I'm not sure which yellow is going to be the best color-wise. So I have the Tim Holtz Distress ink. It's called Mustard Seed. And then I also have the Scrapbook.com Rubber Ducky, which I believe is yellow number 2. I love Scrapbook.com colors. I also really love the Tim Holtz Distress inks. They have slightly different, like the Scrapbook.com is definitely more solid, whereas the Distress ink looks a little more, distressed, but that doesn't, it's cool to have different options. So then I pulled over all of like the chipboard pieces and that January and just compared it to the yellows to pick which one I liked the tone of the best. And I ended up going with the Distress Ink Mustard Seed by Tim Holtz. So I am going to get that one out and stamp that title onto the journaling card. right there. Yep, there we go. So January memories at the top, and then that one is all set. So that's what's super awesome about making your own journaling cards like that, is it's just like, they're easy. Stamp a couple times and it's done. Next, I am going to bring over the motivation stamp right there. And this one, I wanted to use some grays. Since there's a lot of color on that side of the spread, I don't really want to add a lot more color to it. So gray is a good way to like tone things down a little bit. So I am priming it by stamping it a couple times to make sure that it's going to stamp solidly. And then I'm going to make sure it's straight on there and then stamp it. I ended up only being able to get 2 rows stamped on here. And then it leaves like a little bit of space between the stamping and the journaling, which I eventually fill in because it just feels like there's too much space. I'm going to see if I can figure out what was that gray. So the gray that I used on that is called Watering Can, and it's an archival ink by Ranger. I love the archival inks too. They have some really awesome colors. I like getting the inks in the tiny colors, or the tiny little bits, because then I can have a lot of them without having a lot of store, like a lot of room taken up. So this stamp right here is this like week stamp is one that I had gotten from Allie Edwards. I love it because I like to stamp the week for each week in Project Life. And as soon as it came back in stock, I made sure to purchase it. That would have been like, I don't know, the end of last year-ish time. So I'm pretty sure that stamp is still in the shop, and if it is, I will definitely link it up for you down below. Which I guess I will link all the supplies I used down below. So if you're looking for anything, if it's available, I will have it in the description for you. So I originally was going to put the week stamp on my title card, but then realized I was not going to have enough space to put it on there without like really cluttering it. So instead, I decided to stamp week 1 on my photo. And then I decided I still wanted to have my dates on that title card, and thought, well, maybe I'll put a label on there and put the dates on the label. But I just couldn't find one that was small enough or the right color or anything. So I tried and I tried and I tried, and just nothing worked. So I gave up and decided that I didn't care, and I would just stamp it right onto the card. And like, who cares? So this is me deciding to just go for it and stamp it directly on the card, which I end up really liking. So, sometimes things work out. So after I stamped the dates onto the card, which, by the way, for this first week of January, I am recording the 1st to the 5th, which I know is not the whole week, but I just feel like it makes more sense for my Project Life to start on the 1st and to end on the 31st of December. So my week 52 in December was actually more than a week, because I took it all the way to the 31st. So this one's just the 1st to the 5th. Then I am pulling over this photo of my daughter and my husband playing in the snow outside, and I'm going to stamp week 1 onto the photo, directly onto the photo itself. I am just using my Scrapbook.com premium dye ink. I think it's premium, or it might be a hybrid. Nope, it's premium dye ink. Sorry, I just had to go look at that. To stamp onto the photos. I have used this ink on other photos, and I haven't had any issues with it. I also, a lot of times stamping on photos, it matters so much what kind of paper you're using. And I use the Canon Photo Paper Glossy 2, which is really fantastic. Like, it soaks up color and is amazing. Amazing photo paper. I love it. So I haven't had any issues with stamping on my photos and having it like cause color issues or anything.
If it does, I can always just reprint them later and do something different. But like I said, I haven't had any issues, so I am not going to stop doing that. Okay, so then that one's going up there. And I'm going to pull down the entire spread so that I can do this next part all together, which is going to be selecting my embellishments for the spread. So what I like to do when I'm working on a spread using a specific kit is to keep things really uniform. So what I mean by that is I like to select a certain type of embellishment and repeat it on the same types of elements on my page. So that could be putting, a stamp on every 4x6 picture, or a chipboard on every 4x6 picture, or some kind of embellishment on every 3x4 journaling card, or, so on and so on. So for this spread, I originally looked at the stamps first and decided that they didn't really have enough that made sense for me. So instead, I went with the chipboard pieces, and I selected one for each of the 4x6 photos. I've got Fresh Start up on the picture of my daughter and I on New Year's Eve, which made sense to me. It was a fresh start. I've got Brand New Day on the photo of my living room all cleaned up because, again, it made sense to me. The picture of the girls and I, it says Creating Space for New Things, which made sense because we were all there to create products, and I don't know, I liked that. I've got Adore This on the picture of the unicorn cake. I've got a little tiny January above the week 1, which I really liked how that turned out right there. And then my favorite one is the one that says Hello Baby Steps on the picture of my daughter and my son holding hands while he's walking, which is totally my favorite, and it makes the most sense of all of them. And then I decided to go through my tiny words phrase stickers and add one to each of the journaling cards. I also add one to the January high fives card, and then I decide I want something kind of black to pull that color in on my quote card as well. So I will go through my puffy stickers and find a tiny black heart that will go there. So while I finish up the rest of this spread and you guys are watching, I can go ahead and tell you about some of the pictures in this spread. So the first two on the far left that are pictures of my daughter and my husband out in the snow were taken on the 1st of January. We actually woke up to a blanket of snow that morning and couldn't resist getting outside and playing in it. It's actually one of the first real snows we've had so far this year, which is crazy because we live in Michigan and we usually get lots of snow in the wintertime. And as the years are going by, it's pushing more and more into January, February, and not as much in December anymore, like it was when I was growing up. Next to that, I've got a couple of pictures from New Year's Eve, which I added in here because, technically that was New Year's Day. We were up until New Year's Day. So I've got a picture of my husband, myself, and I holding champagne and juice glasses and cheersing as the ball was dropping. This was the first year we let Isabella stay up with us to ring in the new year, so that was fun. Below that is a picture of our living room that is Christmas-less. So we put away all the Christmas. Having Isabella's birthday right after, the first week of January kind of forces us to put everything away. So that was me taking a picture of yay, it's done. Then on the second page at the top, I've got a picture of me with 5 other lovely ladies. I actually connected with a woman here in Michigan who is also a scrapbooker, and she invited me to a crop. So this is me attending my first crop since I was an adult. I actually went to a couple when I was a kid with my mom, and so it's kind of nostalgic for me. Below that is a picture of my husband reading a new book to my daughter, and below that is a picture of my daughter and my son holding hands while he's walking. He actually started walking this week. So that picture is just to remember that this is when he started. And then the last pictures are of my daughter's birthday party, which we had on Sunday. She wanted to have a unicorn rainbow party, so that's what we did. The unicorn that you see on top of the cake there was actually made by a family friend who really is more like a grandparent figure to my children. He and his wife, we call them aunt and uncle, and our kids just absolutely love them. So he made Isabella's cake and then also created that decoration on top, and it was beautiful. So that is it. That was the week.
That is it. So this is simple. It's done. I love it. I love the stories. And I'm just so glad that you guys were here along for the ride. I hope you guys have found some inspiration to start your own 2020 scrapbooking album, project life, or whatever kind of documenting you prefer. And I will include some close-up pictures at the end of this video for you. And we'll go from there, I guess. So thank you. Thank you so much for coming by and hanging out with me. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. And until next time, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.